The bridge of the Phantom Spear hummed with quiet precision. Captain Elias Voss stood at the center, arms crossed, watching the hollow display. The Zorvax Imperium's fleet had arrived over Rhea 7, their warships forming a blockade around the human colony. 100 enemy vessels, massive, bristling with plasma turrets, hung in space like a wall of death. The message from the Zorvax flagship came through, dripping with condescension. "Humans of Rhea 7, a deep, guttural voice announced. "I am Grand Strategist Zervakel of the Imperium. You are insignificant. You are weak. Surrender your colony and submit to our rule. You have no fleet. No defenses. Only the illusion of resistance." A chuckle followed, then silence. The alien warlord hadn't even deigned to give them a deadline. He considered it over already. Voss exhaled slowly. He had expected arrogance, but this level of dismissal was almost insulting. Lieutenant Mirakay turned from her console, her expression sharp. "They have no idea we're here." Voss nodded. That was the advantage of Project Phantom, Earth's first stealth fleet, an experimental force built for asymmetrical warfare. The Phantom Spear and her sister ships didn't show up on any known alien sensors. While the Imperium gloated, 5 undetectable human warships drifted unseen right in their midst. "Let them gloat," Voss murmured. "It'll make this hurt more." He tapped the console, opening a secure link to Commander Hayes, captain of the Spectre's Veil. "Hayes," he said, "initiate first strike." The response was immediate. "With pleasure." Arrogance at its peak. On the Zorvax flagship, Zervakel leaned back in his throne-like chair, sipping a thick, dark beverage from a crystalline goblet. Around him, high-ranking officers lounged in amusement. A secondary screen flickered to life, showing a human representative from Rhea 7, a middle-aged administrator, visibly tense. "We reject your demands," the man said, voice wavering but firm. "Rhea 7 belongs to humanity." Zervakel sighed theatrically. "Disappointing. I had hoped for some level of intelligence from your kind." "No matter." He waved a lazy hand. "Commence planetary bombardment." The order went out. Dozens of Zorvax warships adjusted their weapons, targeting the colony below. Plasma batteries hummed to life. The Imperium had conquered dozens of worlds this way, breaking a species' spirit with the sheer, undeniable force of their war machine. Then, the first battleship vanished. One moment, the Vierock was there, a towering behemoth, gleaming with weapons and energy shields. The next, it was a silent explosion, debris scattering into the void. No warning. No detected weapons fire. It simply ceased to exist. The laughter on the bridge stopped instantly. Zervakel bolted upright. "What was that?" Frantic officers scrambled to analyze the readings. "Unknown, strategist." The Vierock's core ruptured, but there were no projectile signatures, no beam traces. A second warship disintegrated, its reactor detonating before anyone could react. Now, alarms blared across the Zorvax fleet. Zervakel's claws tightened around his goblet until it cracked. "Impossible. Humans don't have this capability." The bridge was chaos. Officers shouted conflicting reports. Scanners detected nothing, no enemy ships, no incoming fire. It was as if the Imperium's forces were being plucked from existence by ghosts. Then, the comms crackled. A human voice, calm and cold, filled the bridge. "Sorry, we were just waiting for you to say something stupid. Now the hunt begins." And another Zorvax ship vanished. Predators in the void. Aboard the Phantom Spear, the crew worked in disciplined silence. 3 down, Mirakay reported. "No countermeasures detected." Voss allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. The Ghost Lance cannons, experimental weapons designed to punch through shields before enemies even knew they were under attack, were working flawlessly. The Zorvax fleet, so used to domination, had never fought an enemy they couldn't see. "Keep moving," he ordered. "Don't get predictable." The human ships drifted like shadows, shifting positions after every strike. The Zorvax, unable to detect them, could do nothing but flail blindly. Their mighty warships, symbols of their supposed superiority, were being picked apart one by one. "They're panicking," Mira noted. On the holoscreen, enemy vessels began firing wildly into empty space, their weapons lashing out at nothing. Plasma beams sliced through the void, hitting nothing but the dark. Voss leaned forward. "Let's make them panic more." Zervakel's fury. On the Zorvax bridge, fear took hold. The Imperium had crushed entire civilizations with brute force. They had never encountered an opponent who refused to engage directly. "Reverse formation!" Zervakel barked. "Deploy wide-range sensor beacons! Find them!" New devices launched from Zorvax vessels, scanning the void with pulsing energy waves. But the humans were already adapting, adjusting their stealth systems to remain invisible. And still, their warships kept vanishing. Zervakel's rage boiled over. He slammed his fist against his throne, fracturing the armrest. "What trickery is this?" No one had an answer. Another ship detonated. Message from the shadows. A silence fell over the Zorvax command deck as a new transmission arrived. Voss's voice, smooth and unhurried, filled the air. "For a species that boasts so much, you don't seem very hard to kill." Zervakel bared his fangs. "Face me in open battle, coward!" A dry chuckle. "Why? So you can pretend you had a chance?" "No thanks. You mocked us, Zervakel. You dismissed us. That was your mistake. Now we're going to carve your fleet apart piece by piece." A beat of silence. Then, "Run! Or die in the dark." The transmission cut. And another Zorvax warship exploded. Zervakel's golden eyes burned with fury. This was no simple skirmish. This was a hunt. And for the first time in his long, decorated career, the grand strategist realized. He was the prey. The battlefield had shifted. What should have been a one-sided massacre, the mighty Zorvax Imperium crushing yet another primitive species, had twisted into something unthinkable. The hunter had become the hunted. From the bridge of the Phantom Spear, Captain Elias Voss watched the chaos unfolding. The once imposing Zorvax armada was fracturing. Warships, designed for direct engagements, floundered in paranoia. Their guns fired at shadows. Their shields flared against attacks they could neither predict nor counter. 5 confirmed kills, Lieutenant Miracade reported, her fingers dancing across the hollow console. "They've stopped advancing on Rhea 7. Looks like they're shifting to full defense." Voss smirked. "Good. That means they're scared." The Zorvax had never fought an enemy that could vanish at will. Their ships, built for brute force warfare, relied on overwhelming firepower, but firepower meant nothing when you couldn't see your enemy. "Orders, sir?" asked Commander Hayes, his voice crackling through the comlink. His ship, Spectre's Veil, was positioned on the Zorvax fleet's flank, waiting for the next strike order. Voss studied the hollow map. "We keep the pressure on. Focus on their command vessels, take out their coordination, and they'll crumble." "Aye, Captain." The connection closed. Voss exhaled slowly, eyes flicking to the enemy flagship, a massive dreadnought at the fleet's center. Grand Strategist Zervakel was in there, no doubt furious. Voss allowed himself a small grin. Good. Let him stew. A predator cornered. On the Zorvax flagship, tension crackled like static in the air. The once confident officers were stiff with unease. 8 ships gone. 0 enemy contacts detected. Grand Strategist Zervakel paced before the command throne, his golden eyes seething. This was an insult. The Imperium did not lose. Certainly not to humans. A trembling officer broke the silence. "Strategist, we should fall back and regroup." Zervakel rounded on him. "Cowardice!" His voice slashed through the air. "You think running will save us? No. We must outthink these vermin." He turned back to the main display, watching the shattered remains of his fleet drift in silence. "What do we know?" he demanded. A science officer swallowed hard. "The attacks are precise, single strikes to critical systems. Our reactors are being hit before shields can adjust. And they're moving after every shot." Zervakel's jaw clenched. That meant one thing. Tactical warfare. Planning. Intelligence. Not luck. Not desperation. The humans were fighting with intent. And that made them dangerous. Deploy sensor beacons across the battlefield, he ordered. Sweep every sector. Force them into the open. At once, dozens of high-frequency pulses erupted from Zorvak's warships, spreading like a web. The hunt was no longer one-sided. Stealth versus instinct. Aboard the Phantom Spear, a warning alert pulsed across the bridge. New problem, Mira said, scanning the incoming data. They're deploying wide-range sensor nets. We might have to cloak harder. Voss rubbed his jaw. The Imperium was finally adapting. Not fast enough to win, but fast enough to complicate things. We're not invisible, he reminded his crew. We're just unseen. The difference was key. Their stealth tech relied on heat dispersion, electromagnetic dampening, and refractive shielding. But if the Zorvaks flooded space with enough active scans, even the best cloaking would start leaving gaps. The Veil reports partial detection on their last attack run, a comms officer added. The Zorvaks almost caught them. Voss leaned over the holotable, thinking fast. If the enemy was sweeping for them, they had to move smarter. Hayes, he called over the secure channel. New plan. Keep your ships constantly shifting positions. Never fire from the same vector twice. Hayes chuckled. So we keep them dancing? I can do that. Voss turned to Mira. Status on decoy drones? She tapped her console. Online and ready. Good, Voss said. Let's make the Zorvaks chase ghosts. Illusions of war. The first decoy drones launched from the Phantom Spear, small, sleek devices designed to mimic the energy signatures of human warships. They spread out across the battlefield, flashing false attack signals across Zorvak's sensors. It worked instantly. They're taking the bait, Mira confirmed. Several Zorvak ships are breaking formation, chasing phantoms. Voss smirked. Let's punish their stupidity. From the shadows, the real human warships struck. Spectre's Veil decloaked for less than a second, just enough time to fire a precision railgun shot straight through a Zorvak's command cruiser's bridge. The ship shuddered, venting atmosphere, then went dark. Another kill. On the Zorvak's flagship, Zervakel roared in fury as yet another of his vessels was lost. Enough of this, he bellowed. Focus fire on the colony. If they care so much for their people, they will show themselves. The order sent a ripple of unease through his officers. Strategist, one ventured cautiously. That would mean killing thousands of. Zervakel grabbed the officer by the throat. Did I ask for your opinion? The officer choked, eyes bulging. Zervakel let go, sending him sprawling. Fire on the colony, he repeated, voice like steel. The bluff and the countermove. Alarms blared across the Phantom Spear. They're targeting Rhea 7, Mira snapped. We need to move now. Voss didn't hesitate. Send the signal. Full counterattack. Across the battlefield, every human stealth ship decloaked at once. It was not an act of desperation. It was the final move in a calculated game. The Zorvaks had revealed their true weakness. They believed humans would fight emotionally. But Voss had played this war like a game of patience, waiting for the Imperium to expose their hand. Now the trap was sprung. Open fire, Voss ordered. Railguns thundered. Torpedoes sliced through the void. Coordinated salvos struck the Zorvaks' warships before they could adjust. 13 enemy vessels were wiped out in seconds. On the enemy flagship, Zervakel watched in horror as his fleet collapsed. This wasn't a counterattack. It was an execution. The Imperium breaks. The Zorvaks' remaining ships turned tail, fleeing in disarray. Shall we pursue? Mira asked. Voss shook his head. No. Let them run. They had achieved their goal. The Zorvaks' Imperium was broken, humiliated in open combat by the very species they had mocked. The survivors would spread the story. Fear would do more damage than another battle ever could. Voss leaned back in his chair, exhaling. The hunt is over, he murmured. For now. The battle was over, but war was far from finished. Captain Elias Voss knew it the moment the Zorvak's fleet turned and fled. They weren't retreating out of simple fear, they were running to regroup, to rearm, to learn from their mistakes. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. Voss stood on the bridge of the Phantom Spear, watching the last Zorvak's warships vanish into the abyss of space. A quiet hum filled the command deck, the aftershock of battle still thick in the air. Damage report, he ordered. Lieutenant Miracade scanned the readings. Minimal. Shields held during engagement. We lost one drone, no casualties. Voss exhaled slowly. And the Zorvaks? Myra's lips pressed together. 17 ships destroyed. At least 6 more disabled. Their fleet's been shattered, but... She hesitated. But they're not finished. Voss completed for her. She nodded. They'll be back. And next time, they won't be so reckless. A silence settled over the bridge. The Zorvak's Imperium wasn't the kind of enemy to accept defeat gracefully. They had underestimated humanity once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. Voss turned to his second-in-command, Commander Hayes, who had just entered from the adjoining war room. Any movement from Rhea 7? The colony's safe, Hayes confirmed. They're sending up a priority signal. Governor Leclerc wants an immediate briefing. Voss sighed. Of course she did. Politicians hated uncertainty. Patch her through. Diplomacy and calculations. Governor Emily Leclerc's face flickered onto the main holoscreen. A woman of sharp features and sharper wit, she wasted no time. Captain Voss, I need a full status update. Now. Voss folded his arms. Enemy fleet routed. Minimal human casualties. Immediate danger to Rhea 7 is neutralized. Leclerc's piercing blue eyes didn't soften. And yet I sense you're not celebrating. Voss didn't indulge in false optimism. Because the Zorvaks aren't done with us. This was a probing attack. They wanted to see what we were capable of. Now they know. Leclerc exhaled sharply. Damn it! Then what's our next move? We take the fight to them, Voss said without hesitation. Before they rebuild. Leclerc's gaze narrowed. You're proposing an offensive? Voss nodded. The Zorvaks think in terms of dominance and humiliation. They assume we're a prey species, but we just bloodied them. If we strike first, hard and fast, we'll shatter any notion that they can control us. Leclerc considered for a long moment. Then, finally, she gave a curt nod. What do you need? The plan. An hour later, Voss stood before his senior officers in the Phantom Spear's war room. The holographic star map pulsed before them, displaying the last known trajectories of the retreating Zorvak's fleet. Our target is Kelrath 4, he began, pointing to a Zorvak supply station marked in red. It's a refueling and repair hub. If they're regrouping, they'll pass through here. Hayes studied the data. Risky. That station's bound to be crawling with security. Exactly, Voss said. They won't expect an attack this soon. They think we're just trying to survive. We'll hit them before they even know we're coming. Mira crossed her arms. What's our tactical approach? Voss tapped a control, bringing up a new projection. We'll divide into 3 strike teams. Team Alpha, the Phantom Spear and Spectre's Veil, will disable the station's long-range communications. Team Beta will plant high-yield explosives along the fuel reserves. Team Gamma will neutralize any reinforcements before they can counterattack. Hayes let out a low whistle. High risk, high reward. Voss's gaze hardened. This isn't just about destroying a station. It's about sending a message. Humanity doesn't run. No one argued. They had a war to win. Silent entry. Kelrath 4 hung in the void, a dark metal construct orbiting a dying star. Its defenses were standard for a supply station, powerful enough to deter opportunists, but not a fortress. The perfect weakness. The human fleet slipped into the system cloaked, approaching the station with ghost-like precision. ETA to target zone, 2 minutes, Mira whispered. Voss studied the station's patrol patterns. Zorvak's ships moved in strict, predictable cycles, as rigid as their doctrine. That was their mistake. All teams green light, he said. Phase 1 isolation. The first shot was silent. From the Phantom Spear, a specialized EMP torpedo lanced through the darkness, striking one of the station's relay towers. The pulse rippled outward, frying comm systems before any distress signal could escape. The Zorvaks barely had time to react before the next phase began. Phase 2 sabotage. On the station's underbelly, Team Beta infiltrated via docking ports. Clad in adaptive camouflage suits, they moved like shadows. Lieutenant Callow, demolitions expert, set the charges along the fuel lines. 30 seconds until boom, he muttered over comms. Then something went wrong. A Zorvax patrol unit rounded the corner. The aliens froze, their violet eyes widening in realization. Callow didn't hesitate. Silenced gunfire snapped through the air. The guards fell before they could even gasp. All clear, Callow reported. Proceeding to extraction. Phase 3 annihilation. The final strike came from above. Voss watched from the Phantom Spear as Hayes' ships decloaked and rained destruction on the Zorvak's defense fleet. Railguns fired. Torpedoes struck home. Zorvak's ships exploded in bright bursts, torn apart before they could organize a response. Inside the station, alarms screamed, but it was too late. Callow's voice crackled over comms. Detonating charges, now! A heartbeat later, Kelrath 4 erupted in a chain reaction, sending shockwaves rippling through space. The battle was won. The aftermath. As the human fleet slipped back into stealth, leaving nothing but burning wreckage behind, Voss exhaled. We've drawn blood, Mira murmured. Voss nodded. And now the Imperium knows, this war isn't going to end the way they thought. Humanity wasn't running. Humanity was hunting. Kelrath 4 was nothing but debris. The wreckage drifted through the void, a silent testament to humanity's defiance. The mission had been a success. But Captain Elias Voss knew the hardest part was still ahead. The Zorvaks wouldn't let this humiliation stand. The bridge of the Phantom Spear was quiet, save for the steady hum of the ship's systems. Lieutenant Miracade studied the sensor readings with a frown. No movement from nearby sectors, she reported. But that won't last. Commander Hayes leaned against the holotable, arms crossed. They'll send a response fleet. The question is, how fast? Voss stared at the flickering wreckage on the screen. Not fast enough to stop what comes next. Mira turned. You're planning another strike? Voss nodded. One final blow before they can reorganize. He tapped the controls, bringing up a new target, Zorvak's Command Nexus Theta. Hayes exhaled sharply. That's their primary war coordination hub in this sector. Voss met his gaze. Exactly. We don't just cripple their supply lines. We break their ability to plan, to respond. Mira hesitated. That's deep in enemy territory. Voss didn't flinch. We just proved we can move unseen. We hit them before they expect us. If we take out the Nexus, we don't just win a battle, we end the war before it fully begins. Silence settled over the room. Then Hayes smirked. Hell of a gamble, Captain. Voss allowed a small grin. That's what we do best. The infiltration. Nexus Theta loomed in the darkness, a vast structure bristling with defenses. It was more than a station, it was the nerve center of Zorvak's military operations in the region. Destroying it would leave their forces blind. The human fleet approached under full stealth, threading through patrols with surgical precision. The Zorvaks had tightened security since Kelrath 4, but their doctrine relied on predictable patterns. That was their weakness. Inside the Phantom Spear, Voss addressed his team. No prolonged engagement. We get in, deliver the payload, and get out. Hayes nodded. Team Beta will plant the charges. Team Gamma will handle any resistance. We cover their exit. Mira checked the readouts. We'll have a 10-minute window before their scanners recalibrate. After that, they'll see us. Voss looked at his people. Then we don't give them 10 minutes. The order was given. The strike began. Phase 1, Ghosts in the Machine. The infiltration team moved like shadows. Team Beta breached the station's lower levels, their suits adapting to the environment. Silent. Unseen. Deadly. Lieutenant Callows signaled. Charge is set on primary power relays. 5 minutes until detonation. Then, a complication. A squad of Zorvax enforcers turned the corner, eyes locking onto the humans. The moment stretched, then weapons were raised. Team Gamma struck first. Suppressors hissed as rounds found their marks. The Zorvax fell before they could sound the alarm. The humans vanished before the bodies hit the floor. Keep moving, Callow ordered. Time was running out. Phase 2, the killing blow. On the bridge of the Phantom Spear, Voss monitored the countdown. Enemy fleet movement? He asked. Myra's fingers danced across the controls. No large-scale response. Yet. That would change the moment the first explosion hit. Voss turned to Hayes. Prepare the fleet for precision strikes. The moment those charges go off, we finish the job. Hayes gave a sharp nod. Locked and loaded. Then the calm crackled. Detonating now? The station burns. Kelrith 4 had been a test. This was annihilation. The explosion ripped through the station's core, tearing through power conduits, overloading defenses. The structure buckled as secondary explosions cascaded through its framework. Panic erupted across Zorvax channels. Now! Voss commanded. The human fleet decloaked and struck. Railguns and torpedoes tore through the weakened defenses. Zorvax warships scrambled, unprepared, disorganized. Voss watched as a flagship tried to flee, a final act of desperation. No survivors, he said coldly. The Phantom Spear fired its main cannons. The flagship burst apart in a brilliant explosion. The war had ended in seconds. The aftermath. As the last fires died in the void, silence fell. Mira broke it first. We did it. Voss exhaled. Yeah. We did. Hayes let out a low chuckle. They never saw us coming. The Zorvax had mocked humanity. They had assumed their place as rulers was assured. Now? They would never make that mistake again. Voss turned away from the burning wreckage. Set course for Rhea 7. Let's go home. And with that, the human fleet vanished into the dark.